Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. She is an award-winning and best-selling author of The Rise and on the Rise and on a mission to bring more wellness, joy, and intentionally to parenting and beyond. In addition to being an author, she is also a BSN, RN, wellness blogger, wellness and culture commentator, and the mother of four incredible sons, and a perpetual student of life. Writing her first book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, which launched in the fall of 23, was a deep calling and a way she could be of service to parents everywhere. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Holly Swenson. Hey, Holly, how are you?
Hi, Caesar. Thank you so much. I'm doing wonderful.
Great, great, awesome. Well, why don't we start by telling me a little bit about who you are? Tell me a little bit about your background. Where are you origin from, and how was your upbringing?
Sure, yeah. I'm based in Montana. I actually grew up in Montana, and I am the mother. I've got, as you mentioned, the mother of four sons. But before that, I didn't have the most typical upbringing. I was actually raised a lot of my life by a single father, and
Mm,
so that I think has really given me a lot of fuel for transformation in my own life. He was a beautiful and continues to be a beautiful soul. But I definitely had some challenges growing up and stepped into kind of that caregiving role from a young age. And from that, I went on to in my when I went to school for my professional life, I went to school to become a nurse.
mm.
And so I used to work. I'm no longer working in the hospital, but worked neuroscience and cared for patients in that capacity. And then we went on to have our four boys, and we started with twins. And so
Wow, cool.
I used to work nights, and I would do 3 12s a week. And what we decided was that it's hard when you're working in the medical field. It can be hard to balance having a family as well because you rotate weekends, you work holidays, and it can just be tricky. So I was blessed to really have a husband who supported me staying home to raise our children to turn inward. And so for many years, I spent time at home, and we actually still have all of our boys still at home, but they're older now.
Yeah,
And our youngest is 11. We have three teenagers. So that's a whole nother, chapter of life.
right.
But then a couple of years ago, I went on to write a book called Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. And that has been a tremendous gateway for me really serving parents and trying to be a force for transformation, wellness, more conscious living. And it's led to some amazing opportunities. I've met some of the top thought leaders in the world. I've been
Mm.
been able to, connect with amazing hosts like yourself, doing lots of different podcasting, news, radio. It's just been a tremendous journey for me, and I really feel in alignment with my purpose and grateful that I get to serve in the way that I do.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that you mentioned that I think it really, there's that saying, when as you're growing up, some of the things that you do growing up tend to lead up to who you are as an adult, right? And the fact that you said, you kind of became, a caregiver. Do you have any siblings?
I have a sister. Yes, I have a
Okay,
sister. Yep.
older or younger?
She's a couple years younger than I am.
Got you. So I would assume that you kind of, based on what you were telling me, did you kind of take that role of kind of helping her grow, taking care of her to an extent, in that sense?
Yeah, I think because we didn't have a strong mother presence for a lot of our life. We had, my father dated off and on. So we did have some women that stepped in to kind of fill that role, but I would say that I was the constant in
Yeah.
that, space for us growing up and just kind of keeping that watchful eye and just being there to help her. Um, and honestly, it was a beautiful. opportunity. It was hard at times, but also I really am grateful
Yeah.
for everything that I've gone through because that's, like I said, I think everything happens in life for a reason. And these were the cards I was dealt. And so I really, instead of becoming a victim of circumstance, I've really chosen to turn it into victory. And I think you always have a choice in how you perceive what's happening to you in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly the part of it too, is like you said, you know, you have a choice. And I also tell people that the choices and the decisions that you make today will determine the quality of life that you have tomorrow. And so it really comes down to making that choice, creating that decision, right? And so for you, taking that and utilizing that, even letting to your younger, adult years where you wanted to be a caregiver by going into nursing, right? A lot of times, you know, part of that comes from who you were as a kid, and being able to see, okay, how can I help and be of service to other people, and be able to create that space for yourself, right? And so you kind of created that stuff. Now, uh, the whole topic that you're working on right now, and helping parents, how to also give them ideas and things like that, comes from you having your own 4 kids, right? So tell me little bit about that, because I think that's huge. You know, the fact that you are creating, and you're in this mission to help parents in such a way where they can go above and beyond just being a parent, right? Tell me more about that.
Well, I think for so many people, especially parents, they're in survival mode,
Mm,
and I think there's a statistic that actually came out recently that close to half of our parents feel so stressed most days they can barely function. So you look at something like that and you realize the stress of the parents is going to transfer to the children. And so we have a responsibility to wake up more fully so that we can shape our children in a positive way. And I think that's what it comes down to is people waking up more in their own life. And so for me, I think realizing, hey, I can raise 4 sons. And not only can I raise 4 sons, but I can do it while keeping my thrive and my wellness intact. But that took me time to realize and understand and partner with. I in my book I talk about, about 7 years in, I hit a wall, and
hmm.
that was an invitation to go deeper and learn practices that really sustain and nourish me that I didn't really partner with up until that point. Like I was always good at, staying healthy, but I really started integrating more mindfulness, more intentional living at that point, and it has been a real game changer for me. And so I think there's an opportunity to go from that exhaustion survival mode to gratitude and thriving. I mean, you can shift from the I have to, that resentful type feeling, to the I get tos. And that is a huge shift that people can welcome into their life once they start realizing that you can have a family and you can thrive at the same time.
Right. Where did the motivation come from to be able to step into the space for you?
Well, truly, I think caring for 4 children and recognizing and partnering with tools in my life and also seeing how other people are suffering, I wanted to provide some of what I had learned to others so that they
Mm,
could activate it earlier in their parenthood.
got
Because
you.
I feel like once you wake up, there's almost a responsibility to help other people start to awaken. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I view my role. And it's a joyful place to have arrived, And so it's kind of my dharma. It's part of my living. I'm living my truth and
Right.
helping other people like find healthier ways to be. Because once you start finding more health and more wellness in your life, that's going to transfer to the children. And that's huge. I think raising children is the biggest job there is, personally.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so let's talk about your book. So your book that came out in 2000, and you said 2003, right?
Yeah, 23.
23. 23.
Yeah.
Um so when your book came out, the idea of writing something, providing something, how did the title come about, right? Because I think it's kind of neat, the title that you have. Where did that come from? What was the idea of that?
Well, so it was interesting because when I was writing my book, I actually compartmentalized the sections of my book into these four words: stop,
Yeah.
drop, glow. And I was playing around with different titles and anyways ended up landing on this. And not only is it fun, but it's also a play on words because a lot of people are familiar with the stop, drop, and roll. So
Mm,
it's kind of a fun way to breathe new life into something that is also familiar for a lot of people, and it also is really applicable to what I'm sharing and what I'm promoting.
gotcha. Talk about the stop, drop, and grow glow method.
Yes. So this method is really designed to help you take parenting to the next level. So ultimately, it's going to help you parent with more peace, patience, intentionality, and joy. Like that's what I really want to land for people. And so it's about becoming more self-aware and conscious of how you're showing up in your own life, not only for yourself, but also as a mother and father. So I think that it's separate. So you need to nurture that parent that lives within you, but also the individual. And I think a lot of times the identity gets lost for
Mm.
parents when they take on that role of being a mother or father. So you want to think of my framework as really building that strong foundation internally and externally, just to help you thrive and transform your life. And I think there's a lot of parenting books out there. My work kind of asks you to go deeper, and so it really turning that mirror on yourself. So it's really about stopping and doing self-assessment and reflection on where you are to date. So I can even run through those for you real
Yeah.
quick if you want
Yeah,
me
for
to.
sure.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, so stop. It's really learning to do that self-assessment piece. So you're doing internal gazing on what's going well in your life as well as anything that's not going well. And it's beginning to cultivate more self-awareness, more curiosity, and more consciousness on your journey. And I think for a lot of people out there, they don't give themselves time to get quiet in their life in their everyday. And that's one of the biggest things I felt a shift in my life when I started practicing that mindfulness, that meditation and prayer every morning. I do that. I try to do it before I wake up in the morning. And when you get quiet in your life, you can start to really hear what you need for wisdom moving forward in your own life.
Mm.
The second part of my framework is drop, and this is learning to drop any drama, any trauma, or personal past lived experiences that are keeping you from living in the now. And by engaging with this, you're allowing yourself to become more present in your own life and for your family. And so this step can be very freeing. And but it's also important to point out that sometimes this was work you can self-navigate. But if you have a lot of heavy baggage that you're carrying, it might be valuable to lean on a licensed therapist or a coach of something of that nature to help you shed skins you no longer wish to wear.
Okay.
Now, for grow, it's learning to lean on habits that are going to help expand you as a parent. So, this can be through diet, mindfulness, exercise, making sure you're prioritizing sleep, reducing substance, or even eliminating substance from your life if that's something that's holding you back. And then thanking your children for all they teach you.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
teach our children a lot, but our children teach us just as much, if not more. And I think sometimes we don't pause to recognize the gifts and the awakenings that they bring to us on a daily basis if we start paying attention. So I think that's an important step.
Yeah.
And then finally for glow, and again, this is very base. There's a lot more depth here, but
Right.
I was learning to take what you've learned from my framework and then starting to apply it to your life. And a big part of this is practicing and partnering with daily self-care. Now, I think a lot of times self-care is viewed as selfish, and it's something that we've had a hard time. Like, I think a lot of people have a hard time pouring into themselves, but the reality is when you pour into yourself on a daily basis, even if it's 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be big, long, doesn't have to cost anything. But when you start taking care of you, everything in your life is going to get better. Your relationships, your family unit, even your work. I mean, everyone you come in contact with, it truly starts to shift things in a big way, in a positive way. So I think this can take some discipline and thoughtfulness to cultivate more of it in your life. But if you are willing to go there, it's a huge boost to your life and to your family.
Right. So a lot of it comes down to it really comes down to like when you're flying, right? They ask you, in case of a cabin pressure, make sure you put on the mask first before you do it on anybody else, even your kids, right? So it really comes down to that. It's a lot of it is taking care of yourself. Well, it sounds to me, right, that it's really more, a lot of it comes and it begins with you so that it can then filters down to your kids or to your parenting or the things you're trying to create in your household. Is that pretty much the idea?
That's definitely part of it for sure. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think that is where it starts. That's where a strong foundation starts. Because if you're coming and stepping into your parenting, your life with your family and you're dysregulated, you're on autopilot, you're tuned out, that is going to impact everything and not probably in the direction you want it to go. So it's about waking up, it's about paying attention to how you're showing it up. It's about noticing more too, like noticing when you start to get triggered, noticing
Mm,
am I responding or am I reacting? Am I connecting before I correct? There's a lot of layers to it, but
right, for sure.
and the more you start to wake up, the more you start to notice
Yeah.
these things that show up in your life.
What about those parents that rightfully so they're trying to do the best thing they can and be the best parents they can, yet they have very busy lives. We live in a society where there's a lot of moving parts, and some parents, work way too long or might have two jobs, and then they don't really have time, or they feel like they don't have the time to be able to do the self-care and or essentially do best parenting practices. What is one message you can give those people?
So I'll give you two things. The first would be for parents who feel like they don't have any time to take care of themselves. I would start small, like truly 5 minutes a day. Try to maybe do it before your kids get up. Maybe you do it after your kids go to bed at night. Maybe you do it after you drop your kids off at school and you park your car and you sit and breathe,
Yeah,
literally for 5 minutes, or there's lots of apps out there that can help you find calm. I mean, there's so many tools at our disposal in this day and age. So I would say start small, but even those that giving yourself 5 minutes to find a reset can be really powerful. And it sounds kind of like, oh, how can 5 minutes make a difference? But it
right.
will. Just try it. And then the second piece with your kids, if you feel like you don't have time to spend with your kids, even making 10 to 20 minutes a day, even if it's not much, but where you are fully present, where maybe it's playing a game, throwing a ball, doing art, maybe it's even just at bedtime, curling up with your kids as they're falling asleep and having pillow talk. Like, how was your day? What
Hmm.
happened? What was, we do rosebud thorn, like, what was the best part of your day? What was something that was hard? What is something you're looking forward to? We do that at the dinner table
Okay.
often with our family. It's just an opportunity to check in and see, like, because a lot of times you ask your kid, how was your day? Or what did you do? And they say, oh, nothing. Like, you did nothing all day, really?
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's a common answer. So if you can get a little more detailed in asking your children, like, it just so they feel seen, heard, and valued. It doesn't have to take a long time, but even just a few minutes of your time every day where you're really dropping in and not being on your phone and not, being distracted, that will make a difference.
Yeah, it's funny because and you 100%. I even see that sometimes you go to like whatever restaurants, sit down restaurants, and you see everybody on their phone, right? And so it's like
Right.
they take away the family time or the connecting time between you and your family, right? And one of the things that I've learned too is that if the parent is not available, like you said, even for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes for the kid, or they're not generally asking for some feedback or having that conversation, a lot of times, unfortunately, in today's society, kids tend to go out and find that tribe or maybe somebody to listen to them in a different place, and sometimes that different place could be bad influences, right, or things that are not serving them, and I've seen that with people that have come through to my show, just leading up and learning and talking about that. And so I think that's huge. I guess the biggest challenge is that again, people like you said might say, "Hey, well, 5 minutes can that really change anything? Would that do anything to me?" And just like anything, right? A lot of times the little things are the things that make the biggest impact. Yet because they're so little and insignificant, people believe that it's not gonna make an impact on their lives, right?
Right. And I will say, if you do it one day and then you don't pick it up again, it might not make an impact. So it's one of those things where consistency is going to help you build that foundation. And that's you wanting to wake up more in your own life. And so if you're not ready, then it's probably not going to shift anything. But if you can commit and just start small, what you're going to find is the more you come back to finding those moments of quiet or breathing or finding connection, you're going to crave more of that in your life, and you're going to find that it's going to start to expand on its own because you'll start coming to it more frequently. It becomes easier, it becomes part of who you are at a cellular level, even. I mean, it's amazing how it will grow and expand if you let it land in your life.
Yeah, definitely. So along those same topics, talking about parenting, tell me about the five rights of parenting.
Yeah, so the five rights of parenting. So I am formally trained as a nurse, as I mentioned, and so there's
Hmm.
something called the five rights of medication administration. Now,
Hmm.
I always like to build on my knowledge base, and so when we're talking about the five rights of medication administration, you're looking at things like the right patient, the right route, the right dose when you're administering medication.
Hmm.
I wanted to do something like this, but for parents. And so the five rights of parenting truly are designed to be a quick way to touch base with yourself on how you're presenting as a parent. And they work to help ensure you're, not causing unnecessary harm to your child or yourself in the process of parenting. So you want to think of these as really a supportive parenting protocol. So the first one is right now, and this one is about being in the moment with your child and being present. So, not texting, not working on, five different things when your child needs you, but rather, and if you cannot put aside what you're doing, that you are then setting a time with them. Like, I can't be with you right in this moment, but in 20 minutes or in an hour, we're going to make time to connect because then you're showing them that, you're seeing them, you're valuing them, and that you're hearing what they're saying. Because truly in parenting, there are no repeats and time is ever fleeting. So you want to maximize that precious time with your children and live in the moment as often as possible. So that's the first one.
Okay.
The second one is right intent. And this one is about being intentional with the choices you make, with the guidelines you set, and, with how you're treating your child. So if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, it could be an invitation to reevaluate your parenting strategy. So if you're simply passing on the parenting you received as a child that didn't feel good to you, perhaps it's time to shift that generational patterning into something healthier. And so it's really just getting more curious in your own life and if there are things that aren't working, it's an invitation to go deeper and maybe shift gears. So, for an example, reacting versus response. So if you have a lot of reaction in your house, maybe see if you can start partnering with more response. Start pausing before you open your mouth if you're feeling triggered. Small things like that can make a huge difference. The third one is the right use of speech. And I believe that your voice is a tool of creation. So you have the power to uplift or tear down. And this can be one of the toughest rights to implement. I think it's important, to speak with mindfulness. And if and when you forget, and you're going to forget a lot of times, over the course of raising your children, that you apologize. I really believe in the power of apology. And the reality is we're all human, we're all perfectly imperfect, and you're going to misstep and misspeak a lot. And so setting that tone, being humble, coming back and saying, you know what, I didn't show up the way I wanted to. Can we fix this? I'm sorry. It's going to help them really know how to navigate their life, and you're going to be that solid role model for them. And in their, as they grow, that they know that there is a way to repair anything that might have gone sideways.
Yeah, and I was saying in this one too. As I think about it, I believe words do matter, right? And how you go about communicating with not just your children, really anybody for that matter, is the words or the selective words that you use in conversating with the other person, right? And I think that matters a lot because there was something that I learned very early on is that well, maybe you get into a fight and you're hitting somebody, bruising somebody. A bruise might hurt, but that can go away. But a word that stays with you even longer than that impact that you had, physical impact, right? And so I think that that's huge, specifically when dealing with younger kids, right?
100%. You're so right. And I think we don't always put enough weight on that.
Yeah.
Words can definitely hurt and tear down. And those can be the voices you hear in your head as you're an adult that you maybe then you're unconsciously passing to your children, right?
Right.
Because
Correct.
that's what you know. And that's the, and so it's like, oh dang, I could be doing better. And so it's just really learning to notice more about how you are showing up, how you're
Yeah.
presenting, what words, what seeds you're planting with your family and your
Right.
children.
Right.
I think I appreciate you saying that. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
The fourth one is the right use of power. And I believe that you want to wield your power with care because you are the one responsible for shaping and setting boundaries, the discipline, and ultimately having the say in whatever issues arise. Along the 18 years you're blessed to have your children under your roof. So you want to not abuse, you don't want to abuse this power, and you want to be intentional in the framework you set for your child. So setting those boundaries, maybe you invite in conversation, do family meetings, but letting your child know where the door is, right? I think having those boundaries in place, but having them in a way that is healthy and navigable and not hurtful.
Yeah, talking about boundaries. So this is something that has come up a lot, and I've had these conversations with other people. Is there? I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong, but is there a better way? I guess. Sometimes say, "Hey, I'm building boundaries." At the age of 18 or 19 or 20, you're at the door. You got to start paying rent, or you got to start doing, that kind of stuff, right? Because we want to prepare you to be an adult. What is your perception on that or your thoughts around that conversation?
So specifically for our children that are getting ready to launch,
Hmm.
I personally think it's critical to help prepare them, help start talking to them. Like we currently have two sophomores and we have a freshman, and we have already started those conversations of, having a job and starting to work towards this moment where you are going to leave the nest
Mm,
because I think a lot of kids aren't necessarily prepared. So,
mm.
practicing things like getting a job, balancing a checkbook, doing these basic things and practicing before they're 18 so that they have some skills in place for launch.
I
But
love that.
I think it's really healthy to start that dialogue earlier than 18 and helping them find success in their own life, without a doubt.
Cool. I love that. Yep.
And then the last right, so the fifth one, this is the right use of love. And this is by far my favorite right because I believe love is the cure for all that ails us, parenting and beyond. We need more love in this
Yeah.
world. And so I think you should try to use this right as many times a day as you can aspire to, and really letting your child know how much you love them, how much you're there for them. It's going to just help plant their spirit in rich, deep soil as they grow. So give that love freely without expectation. And what will likely happen is that your child is going to mirror that love you give them. But even if they don't, especially as they get older, they're teenagers or whatever, that love is being received, it's felt, and it's making a difference.
Yeah. Okay. No, I love that. I love those five rights. So, is this something that so you work with parents? Is there like a coaching program that you would do with parents? Tell me more about what it is how you help parents in terms of this, or get
Yeah.
this out.
So what's been really fun, I actually have something really fun on the horizon. So I wrote my book in 2023, and then I have been connecting, doing podcasting and doing some of these other things that I mentioned at the start of the
Hmm.
podcast. But I have a course launching in January.
Nice. Okay.
This course is called Glow Forward, Parenting with Presence and Purpose. And so I am launching this course, and then we're going to also be launching a community because, for parents, it really does take a village. I
Yeah.
think a lot of our parents are isolated or they're lonely or they sometimes feel like they're the only ones going through some of these hard moments. And so I want to create a space for people to come together to really find transformation in their life because, as I mentioned, I think you can really shift gears from surviving to thriving, and so I want to create space and create opportunities for people to do that, to partner with that. So that there's actually a wait list on my website if
Yeah.
anybody's interested. So my website is liveyourglow.live, but that will be coming very soon.
Gotcha. I love that. Okay. You briefly touched on reaction versus response, right? And I think you know, especially I think all over the place, but especially I know my culture, the Mexicans, we tend to react a lot, right? Instead of responding, and I think that could be a huge impact on how kids are grown and perceived and see parenting and so tell me a little bit about that because I think that's huge. Especially if you're living a very busy life and you have so much going on. A lot of times you just tend to react instead of responding in a different manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate too, because I do think, different cultures, different things, there's a different way they show up, and maybe it's spicy or maybe it's a
Right.
passion. There's like there's a
Yeah.
lot of emotion involved, but um to me, what I think is the biggest difference between reaction response is the level of consciousness involved. And this can be hard to cultivate if you're not programmed to start paying attention. But reaction is rooted in instinct and it's typically more unconscious, right? It's kind of what's there waiting for you. So it can be like that's you like leap into action and you're kind of dysregulating all over the place. Response is more deliberate in nature. And so there's a level of consciousness present when you're interacting with another. And so what's tricky though is reaction, like I said, it's instinctual, it's easy to ignite, especially when raising your kids because they're going to trigger you like nobody else. I mean,
Yeah.
that's their job. They're really good at pushing all the
Right.
buttons that you never knew you had. But the problem is that it's not always very helpful when you're redirecting what's in front of you because a lot of times it's emotion driven. It's not mindful. It is driven by impulse. You're oftentimes shooting right back to your child what they're offering you. And so something that I've said is that you don't have to join in their emotional tornado. You can be the calm in the storm if you choose to be. And that's hard. It's a lot easier to like, when your kid's lashing out at you to lash back, but to actually find your center and not participate is one of the coolest things that you can start to do. And it's not easy. And what's hard too is that a lot of times parents have to make those snap decisions. They don't have the luxury to really think about how they want to reply to a request, an action, or a naughty behavior. Um, but truly, instead of saying something or setting a consequence you may later regret, stop and try to just notice, the way that you are showing up. And so, what I would say is that if your typical approach to your child having a tantrum, if your child's younger, for example, stop, give them a hug, and get quiet if
Mm.
the moment allows. Okay, so sometimes that might not be appropriate, but a lot of times we take things, up to 10 when really we could de-escalate what's going on. And so what's going to happen too, I think there's a lot of times parents feel guilty afterwards. You have an intense interaction, your child feels bad, then you feel bad because you didn't handle it very well. So try to see if you can connect and get soft
Yeah, got
at
it.
certain
No,
times.
I love that. I love that for sure. So definitely have this coming up soon. Your program, which is going to be pretty. I'm pretty excited for you in terms of having that lunch. Um, is there going to be a specific target in terms of parenting? With parents that are nearly parents, or it doesn't really matter in terms of the age group of their kids.
So my course is designed to help anyone and everyone. It's not just for mothers, it's for fathers. I think sometimes fathers get left out of the invite when it comes to parenting. And I think especially for me growing up with a single father, I have so much love for our fathers who
Hmm.
are also, walking the path of parenthood. So it's for mothers, fathers, for any caregiver, truly. So and it can even be helpful for grandparents. So it is for anyone and everyone who wants to create that transformation within.
Got it. Okay. No, I love that. I love that. That's huge. So if people want to, I know you may gave us your website. Is there any other form that people can get a hold of you, contact you, follow you, start creating that connection with you?
Sure, yeah. So my website again, I'll share it is liveyourglow.live. There's lots of good stuff on there. I'm also on Instagram, and my handle is at Holly Swenson _ live your glow. I'm very active on that platform. That's actually the only social that I've been nurturing, but I've got a great following there, and so I'd love to see you to show up there for me and be part of that community. And then my book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, and that's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you buy your books, and on Audible, and anywhere you buy your audiobooks.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So I know you gave us a lot of great, a lot of great tools and what I call golden nuggets. For people that are going through any challenge right now, whatever challenge that might be, what would be one or a few advices that you can give them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
Yeah, love this question. So I think the biggest gift you can give yourself on a daily basis is self-love in the form of self-care. Because when you care for yourself first, you're going to be much better at caring for everything else and everyone you come in contact with. And so this step is going to better help you navigate the obstacles you're currently facing in life. And it's the gift that keeps on giving. So this is a key component of building that foundation for truly activating your thrive in life, especially if you're a parent.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And I know you've built a lot of resilience, and based on our conversation, you've worked a lot and you have a lot of great things. What are your daily habits? What are the things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you up and running, especially with 4 kids, right?
Yeah, and that is for me, it's like a non-negotiable. So the things that keep me sustained, I get up and do my meditation, my prayers in the morning, and I have my own little routine. Like I like to make my green tea in the morning. I bring it in and I do my meditation. And I also even use an infrared heater. Like I just have my things that I love, but that's part of it. And so I'll usually sit anywhere from 10 to 30, 40 minutes, depending on what time I wake up. And that helps me to feel grounded so that when my kids come downstairs,
Hmm.
ready to receive them. I feel nourished. I also feel more connected in my body and then also even connected to the world around me. Like it cultivates a gratitude within me that is really powerful. And so that practice has been really tremendous in helping me as a parent. I also move every day. So I try to move 30 to 60 minutes if every single day. So whether that's walking, I'm big into yoga. I like hot yoga. Especially in the winter. So that's a go-to for me. But running, being outdoors in the summer, I love to garden. I have a lot of different little things, but getting outside every day is also important. So spending time in nature is such a great buffer for your mind and your body and your spirit. So those are some of my daily practices. And then sleep. I'm also really big on sleep because I can't function if I don't get good sleep. So I have good sleep hygiene. I really prioritize that, trying to get to bed and get a solid 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, no, that's huge, and thank you for sharing that. Are there any other specific things that you want to share before I let you go?
I feel like we really hit on so many high notes that I feel complete, and I really enjoyed connecting with you and sharing time and space.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, again, thank you again, Holly, for being here. I really appreciate and I love everything that you're talking and doing and the things you have coming up. So definitely looking forward to that, and I really appreciate you being here on the show today.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you go ahead and check her out. Go follow her on Instagram. Be on the lookout for what's coming up next year. And make sure you pick up her book. And also do me a favor. Make sure that you share this podcast with somebody because definitely somebody needs to hear this message. And I'll see you guys at the next episode. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.